A lot of rematches aren't required, and that was one that wasn't required. Certainly there'll be no trilogy, but, you know, I caught him out.
Pro boxing fans here in London with Eddie Hearn. Eddie, it's been an eventful week in the life of Eddie Hearn. Simon Jordan, obviously drug tests, rock and roll, man.
Yes, mate, it's nothing can hurt you if you just stay positive, stay consistent and keep breathing. So, yeah, challenging. I mean, disappointing news on Dillian Whyte, of course, but had to deal with it, had to overcome it. I think we got a great replacement. I think we got a great show. Obviously, good news that for some that it's off pay-per-view. And enjoy the show on Saturday night. I think it's going to be a cracker.
Robert Helenius shares that common opponent with Wilder, sort of a good build-up. A lot of people are saying, listen, can AJ get this guy out quicker, which is going to be a hard task anyway. But is that partially a reason why you could possibly...
I think it's a good style to prepare for Wilder, but obviously, look, he's not going to get him out of there quicker. And if you look at the fight, you know, Helenius tried to walk Wilder down and walked onto a right hand from the gods. So I don't take too much from that, but what I do take is I think it's a really good heavyweight fight. I think they're two giants. And I think it's a dangerous fight in the circumstances. You know, last time there was a late replacement from a failed drugs test. It was a guy called Andy Ruiz. And funnily enough, that week all we were doing was talking about Deontay Wilder, which we seem to be doing again. But AJ's been here before, he's focused, and I think we're going to see a great performance.
In regards to Dillian Whyte, obviously we're still waiting to hear on substance and whatever else. When is that going to become public?
That's down to him. You know, there's a confidentiality on this, which I've already been, you know, put on notice about from his team, and he has to fight this in his way now. You know, we don't represent Dillian Whyte, but, you know, we have worked with him for a number of years, and, you know, I want to see him happy and I want to see him do well in the sport, but he's got a big fight on his hands. It surprised me completely because everybody knows how stringent the testing is around this fight. But, like I say, now he has his own battle and we move on for Saturday night.
Do we expect AJ Wilder, providing AJ beats Helenius, to be announced straight after? Very soon?
Not straight after, but, you know, the Saudi representatives are flying in on Saturday to watch the fight. They want to get the fight made ASAP. We're ready to sign for that fight, but we need to get this out of the way. You know, it's just like, it's a horrible banana skin to have to deal with going into a fight like that. So just looking forward to seeing AJ perform on Saturday, and then we'll go from there.
Eddie, you love a bit of hype. Have you ever tried to get Deontay Wilder? Is he coming on Saturday night? You know, get him into the ring afterwards?
He's not coming. I don't believe he's coming. I mean, he should do, because obviously Malik Scott is training Gerald Washington as well, and Wilder knows him. He's more than welcome to. I'd love him to come. But he probably, you know, wants to get the deal done before he starts flying over and squaring off with people. So I think the bigger issue for him is deciding if he actually fights before. He's running out of time because we wanted to make this fight for January. But again, keep saying let's not talk about Deontay Wilder, and then we talk about it, but, you know, we have got business to take care of.
The heavyweight division unfortunately hasn't been great for boxing this year. What have you put it down to? Obviously we know Usyk and Fury broke down, so it was a catalyst for a lot of fights not happening.
But when we say that, you know, the big fights haven't happened, what we're really talking about is Usyk Fury. You know, if that fight would have taken place, it would have trumped everything this year. But it couldn't take place. The arguments about why, I don't really care anymore. But I think for us, you know, if we get that Deontay Wilder fight, that's one of the biggest fights of all time. So that's our plan. And if AJ comes through that, which I think he can, we could maybe fight Fury after that. But it's all if. What we do know is it's Helenius on Saturday, and let's go to work there.
Simon Jordan yesterday. Interesting. A lot of people had you winning that very comfortably.
It weren't close. I mean, you know, a lot of the time, a lot of rematches aren't required, and that was one that wasn't required. Certainly there'll be no trilogy, but, you know, I caught him out, and once I caught him out, it was game over, because the problem is when you talk with facts that, one, aren't true, or two, you don't even really know if they're true, it's just hearsay, you're going to get yourself caught out. And when he got caught out trying to catch me out, that I'd got the Dillian Whyte news before I actually did receive it, and the chairman of the British Boxing Board of Control told him, what is this conversation even taking place? You know, when I talk about agendas, you think that a guy like Simon Jordan, who hears about the Dillian Whyte test, who's probably licking his lips when he gets that news, then phones up the chairman of the British Boxing Board of Control to have a conversation trying to catch me out about when I actually found out the information, is not an agenda. I mean, it's the clearest agenda, you know, and I felt for Robert Smith because he got stitched up, really. Simon threw him under a bus, but he shouldn't be having those conversations anyway. So, you know, when you go back to Conor Benn, how many times are we going to talk about the process that happened? We put our hands up. It wasn't perfect. But I go in yesterday and it's like going back and back and back and back. It's time to move on. Conor Benn's been through the WBC. He's been through UKAD. He hasn't been charged through either. He's been reinstated in the rankings. He's had a suspension lifted. He's cleared to fight. But the board have people like Simon Jordan and like other people within the industry phoning them up saying, don't let Hearn do that, and what's Hearn been doing? And it's like, guys, worry about yourselves and worry about making this sport great. Let's move on, and it's time to move on.
Frank Warren said you blocked him from coming on there. I know you spoke to IFL and said, listen, that wasn't nothing to do with me, but just...
We had 10 minutes to go, and the producer came in and said, Frank Warren wants to be on the show. And Simon Jordan went, no, it's not on the show. We're talking about Conor Benn. It's not his time. And I went, yeah, tell him to fuck off.
Were you surprised with that, though?
Not really. He needs the publicity. No, but genuinely, it's a massive show. Like, do you know how many people watch that show? Like, huge. So obviously if Frank can get on there, it's great for him. But the more worrying thing is that Frank and everybody in his office are listening to that interview to try and hope that Simon wins, or try and hope that I say something that they can catch out. It's fucked. But this is what I'm up against every day. You know what I mean? And it's like, but you think, all I said to Simon was, have you ever spoke to Frank Warren the way you speak to me? Come on. Like, let's be honest. Oh, I do. I really gave him a ribbon about the Ngannou. You didn't really. Like, do you know what I mean? So like, yeah, well, your dad gave you the company. It's like, mate, what are you talking about? What's that got to do with it?
Were you surprised with his characters? Very different to the first time.
Yeah, it wasn't really that different. He's just venom. You know, I mean, I know I'm a sexy fucker, but you can't be that jealous of me, you know?
Quickly want to ask you about a few of the fighters of yours. Callum Smith, what's the latest? Are we going to see him out before January?
He wants to get out. We were trying to get him on this card, but it's like we have no slots, and obviously once the fight was removed off pay-per-view as well, it became difficult. But we're trying to find a way to see Callum box. But obviously January 13th is the date.
Conor Benn, what's the latest? When can we see him out?
Nothing. Waiting to hear from the board. We want to go through that process. We want to get him licensed. Time to move on. He's been through everything he's been asked to do. Time for him to fight.
Billy Joe Saunders has been looking for a return this year. Nothing's sort of come on the line. Any talks with him?
Yeah, I've been speaking to his representatives, and you know, we would definitely want to work with Billy. I think he's a great character. I still think he's a tremendous fighter. He's getting in shape right now in Fuerteventura, which I believe he is, and that's exciting. You know, I think he's still got a big future in the sport.
Just clarify the whole Regis Prograis and Devin Haney thing from you. You've seen the back and forth on Twitter, but what's the latest on that?
Yeah, so Regis Prograis has signed his end of the contract. We're still tying up things with Devin Haney. The dates are fluid because of the venues. October 28th, November 4th, November 11th, doesn't really matter. But ultimately, we need to make sure everyone's happy with the dates, etc. I expect that fight to get done. I think the build-up will be fantastic. I think it'll be a great fight, and hopefully we can close it this week.
Dmitry Bivol, what's the latest with him?
Yeah, been injured and should be ready to fight in November. Obviously, wanted the winner of Callum Smith and Beterbiev, so now you'll probably see him fight in November and then fight that winner for undisputed.
Final one, Stephen A. Smith from the US said, listen, Errol Spence needs to possibly consider retirement. You've obviously must have watched the fight by now. What do you make of it? Do you think Errol Spence should consider it?
You've got to talk about the brilliance of Crawford. I mean, look, I'm sure Spence did find it difficult to make the weight. I'm sure the car crash did affect him, but let's not take away from a pound-for-pound great. And I'm sure once he goes up to 54, he'll be back again. I don't see him beating Crawford at any weight, but he's still a tremendous fighter.
Yeah, thank you very much.